have my EtherSport Modular SDK cloned. I can just, if you want, you can just head to the EtherSport GitHub repository and search for EtherSport Modular SDK. You'll be able to find that. And then once you have cloned it, just do npm I to install the dependencies, and then I think you should be good to run all of these example scripts which we have. These example scripts would give you the best understanding, I would say, on to how EtherSport Modular SDK functions. And then also make sure to have a .env file with your private key and then a chain ID. In this case, we'll be using XDC Testnet, which is 51, which I have already added to the .env file, which I have here. Uh, so yeah, these are, let me just walk you through the directory structure of what we have under the examples here. We have some scripts for basic transactions, like let's say send native XDC testnet crypto from your modular account, and then and also we have the how to get the create to address for your associated private key which you have injected. And then, but for this examples, we will be directly using a private key injected provider. But then that can easily be any other provider, like let's say MetaMask provider or any JSON RPC provider for that matter. And then we have add guardians, wherein you can add guardians to enable social recovery. And then we have get call limit, and all of the basic things are in this directory. And then we have module related module management scripts. Like let's say if you want to install an external module, then you can do that using this script. If you want to uninstall, you can use this. And then to list all of the modules which are already installed, you can use this. Uh, and yeah, basically the module management scripts, whatever are there, examples are under this. And then we have Paymaster, wherein you can how can you send transaction using modular SDK to enable gasless transactions. And then we have session key related functionalities over here, where you can enable session key for your particular smart wallet, and then how you can disable a session key, how you can transfer ERC20 for the key which you enabled. Uh, Transfer the ERC20 tokens for using the session key for which you enabled it. So yeah, let's start with the basic ones now. I'll do get counterfactual address first. What this does is this would give you the create to address of your smart wallet. I'll just do npx ts node samples basics, and then counterfactual address. This should give me my smart contract wallet address. So this is my modular smart account address, which is pre-computed using create to. If you want to have different multiple modular accounts for the same private key, then you can use this multiple to get the multiple accounts. I'll just say get multiple accounts. This should give me two different modular accounts itself. Let's say the difference being I'm using index one over here, which you can keep increasing as long as how many other accounts you want. uh, for the by default it will be 0. If you want to have different different modular accounts for the same associated private key, then you can always increase this index or change this index, which should result in a salt change for a create, which is a create to component, resulting in a completely different address of your modular account. So that's that. And then we have get. Also, one more important thing to note over here is the bundler API key, whatever I am using right now. It's a free public key which we have enabled to uh, for users to come and run examples on top of. But you might run into some rate limiting issues because of this. If you want to have a legit key, then you can always do that by heading over to the dashboard. Developer.ethersport.io, wherein you can manage your manage your API keys. You can just create a new key over here and then use that key there, and you should be good. Uh, and then this developer dashboard also contains functionalities for paymasters, wherein you can manage your paymasters. let's say for this key, if I want to manage my Paymaster related functionalities, then I can deploy my verifying Paymaster specifically for your key. And then you can, basically choose around networks over here. In this case, you can choose 50 or 51, and then you should be good. Uh, and then if you want to, once it's deployed, you'll be able to, use sponsor or deposit funds to your Paymaster contract, and then you'll be able to, enable gasless transactions for whatever modular accounts you whitelist. Yeah, once this is deployed, you will basically have functionalities to, whitelist and manage your addresses accordingly, sender addresses accordingly. So that's about the dashboard as to where you can get the API keys. Once you have the API key, just replace it with this, and then I think that should be good. Uh, and then moving on to the next example, we have get gas fees, which is basically getting the 1559 parameters of any chain. Now let's say I'll just replace this with get gas fees. This should give me the max priority fee and the max fee per gas, which is the 1559 gas parameters, which you can, make use to send any user ops. And then let's see, we have get nuns, which would give me the nuns for your particular smart account, which is basically one of the parameters in your user operation itself. And then if you can see, this is a pretty huge number, because the reason being this also encodes your validator address within itself. That's how the implementation of EtherSport wallet works. We have the validator address encoded over here. I mean, this is the place wherein we specify which validator we would use for this particular user op. By default, we have the multiple owner ECDSA validator already installed. Uh, for my private key, which I am using, I have already deployed the smart wallet. So the the module has already been installed. I'll get to that more when I'm explaining about the modules. Now let's just send a few user ops to check and get an understanding of how does the code work there. Uh, then transfer funds. Here, basically, I have a recipient address and I have how much value. This is the native crypto value, how much I want to send. And then I'm just doing get modular instance, which is a helper function within the examples itself, which should give you a instance of modular SDK. And then these are just some helper logs to get a good understanding of how it is working. And then I have transaction batch. This is wherein we add actually the transactions itself. You basically use modular SDK dot add user ops to batch, wherein you can add multiple user operations. If let's say there is approve and send ERC20, then you can just do that with this. Wherein if there is call data, since this is a native crypto transaction, we do not have the call data. If you have the call data, then you can do it on the data field. You just have to add the call data over here and then add it to the transaction batch. You can add multiple operations on the same modular SDK instance, and then you would get a transaction batch, which is just a helper log over here. And then these are also just the helper logs, and then we estimate the transaction to see if all of the user of whatever is there which we are trying to send is correct. If everything is good, then we would just do dot send, which would hash get the hash of your user op and then sign on top of that hash, and then we would continue to wait for the transaction hash, uh, basically to get the finality for that transaction. So yeah, I mean the flow remains same for any transaction you send, just that the way we estimate changes. I'll get to that when we go to the Paymaster module. Uh, Basically, the flow remains same onto how you want to add user ops to how you want to add user ops and then send add transactions to one batch and then send it to the bundler. Uh, and also, if you want to use a separate bundler, by default it uses the hosted Skanda bundlers of EtherSpot. If you want to, let's say, use some other bundler for flexibility, we have, if I can just go inside this, you can also specify your own custom bundler URL as well. You can just say RPC URL and then it can change. I mean, I don't think that was here. I think that was here. Yeah. Uh, you can just say what is the custom URL that you want to use, and then you can just give your custom URL here, and then you should be good to use a. It is flexible that way. You don't have to rely on EtherSport's bundler itself. It will work for any other URLs also for that matter. Uh, and then let me just do a user op, and then say transfer funds. This should basically, so this is my transaction batch which I'm trying to execute, and this is my balance which I have, and this is the estimated user op. Now I have got the user op hash. Now we are just waiting for the transaction to become to get the transaction receipt basically. Uh, and then yeah, once we have the transaction receipt, let me just open this on the Explorer to check if everything's okay. Yeah, this is the transaction hash wherein if you notice here, um, this is the user op which I wanted to perform, and these two are the accounts for the gas whoever paid. Like in this case, this was the address which relayed the transaction for us, and then that's basically that relayed address is basically getting back whatever it paid for gas. That's all. So yeah, this is how we send user ops using modular SDK. It's always we estimate, add transactions to the batch, how many ever transactions we need, and then just do dot send, and then the user op should be bundled with the hosted bundler, and then you should be able to get the transaction receipt back. And then let's just do ERC20 to get an understanding of how we can do that. I have already deployed a sample ERC20 token uh, just for this demonstration purposes. Uh, and then I'm trying to send zero point 0.1 of it. Uh, let's say this is my modular account address. If I open this address on the Explorer, you can see I have one token called gold. I have 9.79 of it, and I'm trying to send zero point 0.1 of it. Yeah, replace this with ERC20. And again, the same thing happens, and then we would get the user operation hash back and then wait for the confirmation. Um, yeah, that's that. And then we have verify signatures, wherein this example would give you an understanding as to how you can sign messages using modular SDK. Uh, the same thing here. We get the modular SDK instance, and then this is the type data on top of which I want to sign on. This is the sign v4 method which we use internally. Uh, and then this is the public client which I am creating using the hosted bundler, Skanda hosted bundler setup. And then uh, I have my sign data over here. You just have to do modular SDK dot sign type data and then send in the type data, which should eventually include the domain types and whatever primary type and what is the actual message itself you want to sign on top of. And then there is the normal sign message, which is basically signing your personal message. And then the validations are happening here to check if those two are valid, like the signature is valid or not. I can just run this also. My signature, which should basically give a log saying the signatures log, and then giving a log saying if it's verified true or false. That's all. And then moving on, let's see the add guardian thing. I'll just run through as to how you can add multiple transactions, right? Like I explained before, these are the different call datas which I have. In this example, I'm trying to add in 3 guardians, and then I have these 3 guardians, and this is specific to the EtherSport modular account itself because we use multiple on the ECDSA validator. This works on EtherSport wallet itself. Uh, And I think feel free to walk through the examples for transfer NFT also. That should also work the same way. Uh, and then moving on, let me just walk you through the Paymaster example also, uh, wherein we have the transaction details over here. And then for API key, we are using Arca public key, which is a public key enabled on Arca, hosted Arca, which is a Paymaster service. And then the bundler key remains the same. And then in this case, we would use this public key, which is only valid for testnets, of course. Uh, for to make it work for mainnets, you would have to get a uh, entirely new API key, which I just showed. The same API key works for both bundler as well as Arca also. And then you'll be able to use that to get the paymaster signed for sponsored user ops. And then the same thing here, the difference being in this case, when you are estimating, previously when we were estimating, we were not specifying anything else. We were just doing dot estimate on the modular SDK instance. We were just calling the estimate on top of it. Like, let's say here, this is a transfer fund native crypto transfer example, wherein we are just calling the estimate on top of it. Whereas in this case, we would specify the paymaster details and say what is the context being sponsor for native paymaster sponsor. If you want to pay using a separate ERC20 token, then you would just have to do ERC20 and then specify the token with which you have to pay. Of course, if it's supported, only then it would work. Otherwise, you will be reverted otherwise. uh, so yeah, that's how you can sponsor. Right now, I cannot demonstrate that, unfortunately, because we do not have ERC20 tokens set up for XDC network. And then if you want to use multi-token paymasters, then you can just do multi-token, which should enable you to use the multi-token paymaster deployed instance to pay for gas. Uh, and then, yeah, I think the flow remains the same. I think Satish has also demonstrated this as to how the Paymaster thing works. Uh, yeah, and let's just run it anyway. Um, yeah, this should sponsor me sponsor me gas using the public key of Arca. Notice that in this case, the paymaster and data is not empty. If you have noticed the other user ops, the paymaster and data used to be entry for other user ops because you are not making use of the paymaster. And then yeah, this should sponsor for gas. Mm, and then let's see, we have session keys, which would help you enable session keys for a particular modular account. And then yeah, modules, of course. Let's just go through this first and then go to session keys. Let's say in this case, I will try to install the session key validator module into my smart wallet, and then try to run an example. Let's say let's do ease module installed first, and then I'm trying to get if this particular module is installed or not, which is I think the multiple owner ECDSA validator module. Uh, let's do modules and module installed. This should give me a boolean if it's installed or not. This is, I think, the address of multiple owner ECDSA validator deployed instance. That's why this came out to be true. And then let me just grab the session key validator contract address also. Should be here. Yeah, this is the ERC20 session key validator. Uh, if I can replace this with this, it should give me a log saying if this validator is already installed or not. And then this is just a enum for module type, which can be hook, executor, or the fallback handler, like I explained on the slides. So yeah, it came out to be true because I have already installed the ERC20 session key validator. Let's go on to install module. The same thing happens here as well, wherein you just use the modular SDK dot install module, then you specify what type of module it is, and then you give in the modular deployed module address. If there is a init data, then you would optionally give the init data also. For our validators which we use, they do not have the init data. That's the reason I have left it empty. If there is some custom external modules which you want to install on top of EtherSpot modular account, then you can just specify that in the third optional argument. And then yeah, let me try to install module. I think it should revert me back because I have already installed it. This again being the ERC20 session key module. Yeah, it would revert saying it's already installed. And then you have uninstall module also, wherein you can uninstall your module from. So basically, that's the advantage of modular 7579 compatible wallets. It's just plug and play. You can install any module you want anytime, or uninstall any module anytime you want. Uh, and then let's use list modules, which should give me the list of all of the modules which I've already installed. It should give me two addresses, one being the multiple owner ECDSA, which is the default validator which we use for EtherSpot modular account, and the other one being the session key validator, which is already installed. Uh, let's enable a session key using this now, since and also to note is that this enable session key would work only if you have installed your validator ERC20 session key validator already. If not, it would fail. So just make sure to keep in mind to have this installed already before trying enable session key. So yeah, in this example, what we are trying to do now is that we have the modular SDK generated already, and then we are basically using a session key validator on top of this, and we are using dot create on the modular. Yeah, this should create a new session key, and you can make use of that session key whatever is created and to transfer the funds. Yeah, this is the brand new session key which you just authorized your modular smart account on for this particular function selector, and this is the token address which the modular account already has. So yeah, you can just make sure to replace this particular session key in the rest of the examples, and it should be good. And the rotate session key would actually create a new session key, and it would basically replace the existing session key with the new session key, whatever you created. Mm.